Well, hello model car fans. Welcome to the Muscle Car Modeler. My name is Raul, and this week I'm going to do a video on my 67 Mustang GT500E project here. And also because I really need to strip the paint on this, I figured I would do another video on how to strip paint, because I did a video but I didn't actually put the model and do some stripping and showing some of the brushing techniques and some of that stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and do that with this video as well. But to get you caught up on what's going on, like I said, this is my 67 Mustang GT500E, and this is a resin body that I cast. And since I know exactly what I cast it from, this is Smooth On Task 8, which is a pretty hard resin and is pretty chemical resistant, so I know I'm not going to have any real issues using the Super Clean here, which is a really strong degreaser, and it has no problem stripping the paint off and the chrome off. I use this all the time. I start with this, and if it doesn't attack the paint or take it off, then I may try 91% alcohol, because I brought that up in my other video. But I'm going to use this, and I got my tub here, and you can use it over and over and over again, but I'll get to that. So the reason I'm stripping this is I did all the body work to this, and it came out pretty nice, and I shot it in gray primer. Now I used all Testors paint, but because this is a pretty transparent yellow, I shot it with the flat white and got it ready for a coat of yellow. Now the problem I had with the flat white is sometimes when you do that, this one, it started to do some cracking, so hopefully the camera can pick that up, but you can see it in the spoiler and in the sides here where the paint started to do a little bit of cracking. So I'm like, alright, well, that being the case, the hood did it too. So when I shot the hood, you can see the texture cracking, which I don't want. And I sprayed the yellow on, and I was finding out it was taking quite a bit of coats to get the coverage that I wanted, but it was also highlighting and showing the cracking, because sometimes you get enough coats on there and it'll disappear, but this was not doing that. So I definitely need to strip the hood, but since the body started to do it back here, I'm going to strip the body. And on top of it, because this Testors paint is taking so many coats, I showed you that I'd gotten a very old bottle of Testors Illuma Yellow Pearl here, which is a very nice pearl yellow. I really like this color, but it takes a lot of this paint to cover paint, so it's very transparent, and it takes a lot of coverage. I mean, you can even see the marble in here at the bottom, so it's pretty transparent. So it's going to take a lot of this paint to cover the model, and at this point I don't think this is going to be enough. I might actually need 2 bottles to do that. So I kind of stopped, and this thing just kind of ended up sitting for a little bit and trying to decide what to do. So when it came to, I went to Model Zona, and Jameson was there, and he's Scale Finishes, and he has his paint line, and he had a ton of paints there. And another friend of mine that was here, I was talking to him and a few other people about it, and I'm like, I'm really looking for a really nice pearl yellow that really pops. And Chris Sobiak said, hey, you might look into House of Color Lime Gold. I'm like, okay, well, I don't really want a lime gold, because I was thinking, it says lime gold, but it's really a yellow pearl. So once Jameson showed me, I'm like, oh, okay, that's pretty much what I'm talking about. So Chris, I took your idea and I went with it, and I like this. And the thing I've had with he only offers his primer in gray. He doesn't offer white primer or pink primer, which maybe he'll offer it, but I'm pretty much switching to his primer because I use his paints a lot, because the Testors primer I can't get, and this is all done with Testors paint, and I can't really get another bottle of this stuff because they stopped making the Boyd's line a long time ago. But now Testors isn't making these bottles anymore, so it's getting harder to get some of these paints. So, and my experience with Scale Finishes is it's a lot better coverage with his paints. You spray them on thin, but the coverage is really good. I mean, you can, even in the bottle, you can't see a whole lot of the bubble there. It covers pretty good, and you can see the marble in this one as well. But the coverage is probably a lot better. But I'm looking forward to using this. So, but to do that, I pretty much got to strip this and go all the way back to the raw resin and go back to it. Also, another real quick shout out on this before I forget. Carl Smith in my last video on this, because I haven't updated this in a while, he suggested that I remove the bumper guards that are on this, and it might clean up the back end a little bit because everything else is kind of smooth. So Carl, I took your suggestion and I sanded them smooth and cleaning it up, and it's cleaning up a little bit there. These will be hidden by the license plate. That just holds the license plate, and I think it's going to look a lot better. But since I'm going to strip it, I'm going to strip the paint off of this too. The bumper is going to be body color, but it's not glued on. It's just sitting there in place, ready to go. So besides, you know, having to strip some of the white off of it, I need to strip this as well. So getting it going here. Now you can use this quite a bit. So I got an old toothbrush, and this stuff's pretty caustic, so best to wear gloves when you're working on it. So when I really start taking the body out and scrubbing it, I'm going to be wearing latex gloves. But I cleaned this out because I'd used it many times and it had gotten milky. So this is just a plastic Tupperware that's just pretty much the right size. So most of my bodies fit in here. You know, there's a few cars that I had model kit wise that are so big, like a 59 Cadillac's not going to fit in here, so I'll have it sitting at an angle, you know, like that, floating in the tub here. But this one, I'll take the hood off, and most of the time this is just full, so I'll just throw those in there and we'll start to pour some of that in there, and then I'll let it sit. Because this is resin, I'll let it sit for like an hour, and I'll stop and I'll scrub it. So I'll end up zooming in on it a little bit. So here we'll zoom in and start pouring it in. So there we go. Get that out of the way, that stuff out of the way, and here we go. And hopefully, you know, I got plenty of this stuff, because this stuff, it lasts a long time, and it works pretty good. So I'll just pour it in there, and I'll just do it enough to submerge it. There we go. And I usually have this in the garage. Might as well just, since that's the last of it. But I'll leave this in the garage and leave the lid on it, because it has an odor. It does smell a little bit. So I'll end up soaking it and letting it soak. But since I'm indoors, I'll put the cover on it and have that ready and let it soak. And we'll come check on it in about an hour. So we'll see how this goes. Alright, an hour has gone by. So let's see what the progress is. And then get my brush here and gently pick it up and see. Yep, paint's just falling off here. Just gently. Now, I don't want the paint to splatter anywhere. So I'm brushing it very gently, very carefully. See, just took it right off in what is an hour? No, more like an hour and 20 minutes actually. But you can see it's just coming right off. But then again, this is fairly recent paint job, not an old paint job. I'm trying not to get it to splatter anywhere. Because this is pretty caustic. And I really don't want the cleaners eating everything up. So you can see how it turns milky white. let's find the hood. This has 3 layers of paint on it, so it's a little gummier, but it's coming right off. Alright. Really won't need much on the bottom side because I didn't even primer that, but it's there. Sometimes just brushing it, going at different angles and changing the thing, you'll get into some of the crevices where it's holding on tightly, but you can see that's pretty much stripped, and then I'll move this into the kitchen sink or living bathroom sink or one of the sinks, and I will scrub it with water to wash it off. But there we are. So you see the latex gloves have protected my fingers, because this stuff will tear the oils out of your fingers, dry your skin, and itch. So just be mindful of that as you're using it, and then rinse all this off. I'll be cleaning the table here, and it's splattered on my model box and some of that stuff too. So it appears this is pretty much ready. I'll go into the other room and rinse it all off and see how it came out. Okay, so let's get this out, and we'll get it over to the sink. Matter of fact, let's zoom out a little bit. I'm going to just put it on the lid here to give you a better idea. I'm just going to transport it on that. And then the bumper, which is in here somewhere. The little parts can float around in here and make it really hard to find sometimes, which the bumper is doing for me. There it is. Okay. Alright. Just dripping the excess off of my fingers here. Now we'll take the glove off, bring the toothbrush, and we'll head on over to the sink and wash that off. So I'll be right back. Alright, so just getting back from the sink here, and it's still wet of course, but I just slid the bumper back on, slid the hood back on, but brushed it off and cleaned it. She's looking really good, and pretty much ready for primer again, so let it dry and I'll start the painting process all over again. Now when you do this, any putty you use, like I like to use polyester putty, it'll strip that off too. But if you use super glue, it doesn't take that off. So if you use super glue to fill in holes or any work like that, it won't affect that. But any polyester putty it will remove. So sometimes you gotta start your body work over. Just depends on what you use. And I don't think I had any areas where I really got to work on that on this one, but I'll be setting this aside, let it dry, and be ready for more. Now when it comes to this, I just put my lid back on, and I'll leave it in the garage out of the way of my 5-year-old, but I store that like that. It'll settle down at the bottom and turn clear again, but when it really starts to get milky and you start to notice it doesn't strip as well, that's when I usually replace it. But this might be in here for a couple of months depending on how much I use it. But I use it to strip chrome, and then when I get new resin bodies, I'll dip it and just wash it off to get the mold release off of it. So I'll do that as well. So I use this for quite a bit of stuff. So I hope that kind of helps here. So keep moving on my Mustang convertible here and working on it. But I hope this answered a few of the other questions that didn't get answered in my other video on how to strip paint. So I'll leave this up. I'll leave that one up as well and label it that so that anybody can pull it up and check it out. So thank you for tuning in, subscribing, and watching, and all your comments. I really appreciate it. And you guys, you have a wonderful weekend, and I'll see you next Saturday.